Technology, IICT, Kolkata, India. He is Shantiswarup Bhatnagar Awardee. Today, sir will be delivering a lecture in this valedictory session, and the topic is accommodating interventional divergence in STEM workforce. Request you, sir.
Very good evening to all of you, all the delegates from all over the country, all over the world. This is a great privilege to be present here. I thank the organizers, I thank Dr. Santoshi Halder, who has been a very good friend of mine for the last 1 decade or so. And I'm not a social scientist, right? So, how much time do I have to organize this? 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Talk about how we look at so I'm not a social scientist, I'm a laboratory scientist. I have been doing laboratory sciences. But it will be, perhaps this audience will not be surprised, but it actually comes as a surprise to a lot of laboratory scientists that diversity issues in the laboratory science is something of great value and great concern in the present years. So when I went through the program of this conference and I was requested to give the valedictory talk, I thought of pointing to something that has been going on in our mind, in my mind specifically, for a long time, and introduce you to the issue of accommodating neurodivergence in the STEM workforce. Whenever we are thinking of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we are always thinking of a certain breed of human beings, certain breed of Homo sapiens who will do STEM research, STEM discourse. But I'll just tell you a few stories. As I already told you, I'm not a social scientist, I'll just tell you some stories. I start my story with this gentleman, Shinichi Mochizuki, from Kyoto University. So he is a mathematician. He studied mathematics, he was brought up in Tokyo, studied mathematics in Princeton, went to Harvard. By 23 years old, he already had his doctorate in mathematics, and he went back to Kyoto as a faculty in RYI, which is a very renowned center for mathematics research. It's a research institute for mathematics. In 2012, so he was known to be a brilliant mathematician. In 2012, he did something that kind of shook the world. I tell you, it's literally shook the world. What Mochizuki did, so he silently posted 4 papers, almost 500 pages long, on his own personal website, not to a journal, nowhere. And he never talked about it to any of his colleagues. He just silently posted those papers on his personal website. And when people found that out, they found that he has been working on a long-standing mathematical problem called ABC conjecture, and he claims through those 500 pages of calculations and reductions and logic, he has proven that knowledge. And he never told it, not his scholars, not his colleagues, no one, just it was online. The first person was one of his colleagues. His name is Abhiko Tamaguas, and he suddenly one evening finds out that Mochizuki has put 500 pages worth mathematical proof on his own website. And he found out what was all about. I mean, it was about ABC conjecture, which is unproven, and people know it's a big deal in mathematics. So he downloaded the paper. And he sent it to another friend of his, another mathematician in UK, and asked him, so can you just make sense of this? What is happening? So Shinichi just put all these papers on the website, and he claims he has proven ABC conjecture. He doesn't want to let anyone know, just put the proof out. So this friend of his, Ivan Fesenko, was working in Nottingham, and he worked day and night for 2 weeks. He never went out of his office. He ordered food, and 24/7 for 2 weeks he was going through those 500 pages of proof, whether what is happening there. And after 2 weeks, he sent a message back to Tamagawa. It's impossible to understand. It's incomprehensible. Now, I already introduced Masumi to you. So he is a Princeton graduate, doctorate at 23-year-old age. Within 10 days, the news came to Nature. It's a Nature news. Nature is supposed to be the highest journal in the scientific world. Within 10 days, the news was in Nature that there is a proof available online that claims to have proven ABC conjecture. He was not talking to anyone about this. He was not ready to discuss anything about this. What, when he did that, for how long he did that, what was in his mind, etc. He actually named this proof inter-universal geometry and just put the paper online. So in 2015, a whole lot of mathematicians from all over the world came together in Oxford just to discuss those 4 papers, 500 pages. 2 young colleagues of Mochizuki from Kyoto went to Oxford, Yoshiro and Yamashita. So they went to Oxford, they presented the paper to that big conglomeration of mathematicians in Oxford. Mochizuki refused to take part in the discussion. He refused to come over. He didn't want any discussion with him. His attitude was, if you think I have done something, find it out what I have done. He only appeared briefly on Skype to answer a few questions in the request of Professor Minion, who actually hosted that meeting in Oslo. And he appeared for 1 hour, just so that these mathematicians from all over the world could ask a few questions. So he was there. After 4 days with Wisconsin medicine, I'm not taking the name, Wisconsin medicine mathematician commented that it's as if you are looking at a paper which comes from the future. It's like science fiction. The existing mathematics that I know about is not enabling me to understand whatever he has written, whatever he has proven. And he named it inter-universal theory. Yuichiro, who actually presented that paper in Oxford, later commented that he had made a new universe all by himself, and he was the only single inhabitant. And that started with proving that ABC conjecture. And all the mathematicians in the world could not understand how things were linked. This was also a Nature news. So, this literally shook the world. This meeting, this 4-day-long Oxford meeting that was reported in Nature news, Nature was also wondering what's happening. It's 2015. I'll stop here. I'll show you a few more images. How many of you can recognize some of them at least? So all these are makers of modern science. And all of them in our medical terminology. So I have a background in medicine, so I understand a little bit of neurodivergence. In the medical terminology, all of them are neurodivergent, but divergent individuals. And you don't need doctors to tell you that they were neurodivergent. The guy, extreme left guy, that's old age portrait of him. In the younger age, when he was young, he had taken a carpet sewing needle, pushed it through his eye to find out how eye actually works. So he was trying to push the eyeballs, reshape the eyeball to find out what exactly happens using a carpet sewing needle. Do you know who is that? I purposefully put a rather not known picture. That's Isaac Newton. In his old age, that was a portrait done in the old age. All these people, the second guy is Charles Darwin. So he went to Edinburgh to study medicine. He could not stand the view or vision of all these viscera present in the glass jar. And he left medicine, went for a voyage, came back, wrote Origin of Species. The next is Maxwell. Fourth is Pierre Curie. All of them were neurodivergent. I already talked about Shinichi. He's still working. In fact, if you think deeply enough, till almost 19th and early 20th century, neurodivergence was very common among philosophers, scientists, mathematicians. What happened? Now you don't find it. Shinichi is a rare exception. What happened was science was institutionalized. And once you make something institutionalized, there are filters in place. There are typicality, definitions of typicality in place. So when someone discovers today, for me to discover something, I have to go to a research institute, enter through his gate, following a protocol that makes sure that I'm a normal or stereotypical guy or neurotypical guy. And that creates a wrong expectation of neurotypicality. So we are actually losing a whole lot of potential that could contribute to the science, progress of science, just because Isaac Newton didn't have to go to a research institute to do his science, right? He actually did most of his science, most important science during a plague epidemic in his village house, in his grandma's house. Because the Cambridge was shut down, there was a lockdown going on in Cambridge, and he went to Woolthorpe, in his grandmother's house, and calculated all the Newton's laws and everything. So that means your scientific academia has actually developed this neurotypicality among the scientists. So we actually expect certain kind of individuals to become scientists. By the way, what is ABC conjecture? Anyone? So ABC conjecture is for three positive integers, A, B and C, if they are co-prime to each other, that means they do not have any common factor, such that A plus B equals C. Then the product of the radicals of these A, B and C, radicals means the unique factors of those A, B and C. So product of the radical is always much bigger than C. It's weird, right? It's just a number theory game. How many of you understood whatever I said? Not many, I think. What if I show you the numbers? This is ABC conjecture. So 15 plus 22, 37. 15 is factors are 3 into 5. 22, 2 into 11. So none of the factors of 22 can go for 15, none of the factors of 15 can go for 22, that's why they are co-prime to each other. You just add them, you come up with this result 37. Now if you get all the factors out and look at the radicals, all the factors are radicals. It's not a big deal, and just multiply them. So it's a multiplication of all the radicals. The amount is this much. Most of the time it is like that. Most of the time. And that's ABC conjugation. Simplest number system conjugation. There are exceptions like this one. Here this radical multiplication is lower than 120, that's the A plus B plus C plus C is higher, but that's really rare. You know how, so I had to find it out. I had to find it out from a book which will be the exception. Why? Because it's so rare. So if you look for all C below say 10,000, there are 15 million possibilities of such A plus B equal to C. You just find 120 conditions where C will be lower than this, C will be higher than this. So how many of you now understand it? And there are still people who did not understand it that well. And that's zero divergence. So I was just demonstrating what is zero divergence. Now let us give a less menacing task to you. What do you think is it? This is a painting, what is it? How many of you think it's blotches of black and grey? Yeah, so how many different possibilities I'm just trying to find out? Okay, now I'll tell you it's a face. Now everyone says it's a face. So that's neurodivergence, all of it. So all of us are different. All of us are different. We are different like the sunflowers on this field. You know, sunflower looks towards sun, isn't it? Everyone knows that. How many of them are looking at the same direction? Not many. Now if you take all the angles and put them on a graph, so someone is looking forward, someone here, someone there, all the angles you take and put it on a graph, what will happen? It will be a normal distribution. Biology is all about normal distribution. Even sunflower fields follow that. Why not Homo sapiens? Not only that, and when we actually, most of us, perhaps all of us, and most of us belong to the central median stereotype. Okay? That's where we are talking. So whatever diversity I just demonstrated through that ABC conjecture and that painting falls within that peak. That's the heterogeneity within the peak, median peak. Okay, so most of us are neurotypical. As Professor Kotri was rightly pointing out, it's the gift of industrialization. Not only that, we always think of normal distributions, and so whatever neurodivergence we are talking about, they are on the scales. And not only that, we think of it as a 2D plot. It's actually like this, right? So there are different dimensionality of neural functions. And it's very important to acknowledge, discern that there is a dimensional topology of the normal distribution. Now, neurodivergence is extremely common, and people have already calculated how many of them are neurodivergent. How can you do that? 15 to 20% of people are neurodivergent. Where from it comes? I just demonstrated. Every one of us are different. So just this percent value is actually putting a bracket in the median, right? But actually what we are facing is natural variations like that sunflower field, which way the flower is facing. It's a natural variation of how our brain works, how people think, how they communicate, how they process information. If they are a little bit away from this medium term and all these things, right? Do you know what is, most of these things, last name, do you know what is that? This calculator?
Yes. Calculation problem.
So they have problem with abstract numerical values. All of us had this problem just few moments back when we were looking at a decimal reaction. Right? We had certain variations of that calculator. So that's what I was trying to demonstrate. That this diversity is inherent to biology, and we are biological animals. And you cannot really deny this diversity not to be discerned. It also has a percent attached to it. 3 to 6% of kids have this calculator. So next time, whenever you find such a kid who just doesn't really like to do maths, just look at her not as a loser, but as someone who falls in a different dimension of that normal distribution. Right? So academia medicalized neurodivergence. We have been, so studies were done with those individuals, not really for them or with them, most of the time. Now things are changing. Professor Dr. Ghosh actually is, in her inaugural keynote address, she talked about it. So we are moving from medical to social. Actually pick up that actually we are taking a step forward, but I'm not sure whether we are already there. It's a long way to go. I don't think this heterogeneity within the median stereotype you ever expected. All of you are social scientists working on diversity. So for a STEM team member, neurodiversity is seldom ignorance. So that is exemplified by Shinichi, Isaac Newton, Pierre Curie, people of that sort. It's actually a distinctive strength, and we are actually missing out on it. Because what divergence actually comes with is like faculties like pattern recognition, very good pattern recognition, very nice precision, problem-solving skills. But we are not really leveraging those potentials, right? So, but they are actually rather good for STEM field. We are doing something which is not good for STEM field. And as she already mentioned, we are slowly progressing towards this social. Still, we are moving from medical to social, but we have to find out, we have to accept that this is all natural variations. And we definitely need to confront neurotypical standards in coming years. Social scientists and psychologists, psychiatrists have to take the leading role, not people like us. We are busy doing laboratory science. And we also need to understand the tailored needs, because again, that 3D Gaussian curve should always guide you. What are the challenges? For example, people have started looking into it. The most important challenges are in case of STEM career. If you ask any interviewer in a big university and talk about this, what will be the challenge for a neurodivergent, so-called neurodivergent individual, I think he will also point out to this. So how they will navigate the social interaction, which is so important for doing science, doing teamwork, doing collaborative research, etc. But you have to understand that interactions may differ from conventional norms, and it can actually be a different dimension of interaction. And second is, there are specific sensitivities. Clinically, like we read in textbooks, there are specific sensory sensitivities of this. A lot of neurodivergent individuals that uniqueness. So STEM, we always think of STEM as the, also our government leaders tell, so science is the driver of the progress of this country. No, it's not only the driver of progress. STEM is not driving economic growth. It's not there for that. STEM is there to know who we are and what we can be. We look at STEM as a money-making machine since industrialization again. But science is all about knowing ourselves. So we should definitely acknowledge, recognize, and value diverse cognitive styles and dimensions. And it needs mentorship, community, these things. You know much more than that. People have been really trying to figure out in a lab environment what are the mental stress and what is the spectrum of mental stress that should be dealt with. Principal investigators like us, not here, but in some universities they are being trained to how to deal with this kind of conflicts and difficulties. There is an initiative solely on neurodivergence in STEM career by Edinburgh University, Edinburgh University, and they have actually talked to people, all sorts of graduate students in different science disciplines. They found almost half of them who are neurodivergent never divulged that they are neurodivergent because they think that will actually harm their career prospects. So that's the situation today. And they are actually, so they got UKRI fund to look into this and prepare a report. They have just come up with a report where they are recommending for training the principal investigators, changing the lab environment, being sensitive to the sensory sensitivities that these neurodivergent people have, etc. So we have to go a long way. And now AI has, how will it, and AI was there, but more importantly is generative transformer models are there. Now generative transformer models are really choosy. It chooses memories that are kept. It doesn't take all the memory into account. And that creates a big problem for neurodivergent people to interact with. And how it will interact with neurodivergence, we don't know. It's a big challenge. Also, I think it can also empower the neurodiversity, individuals with neurodiversity, but there will be ethical challenges. As I said, generative transformer models have their own limitations on how to gather knowledge. It will definitely go for that median knowledge.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you wind it up in about 5
So I'll
minutes?
just end with. So now the other non-neurogenic diversities and exclusions. I'm not an expert. I'm not a social scientist. But I still have certain questions for you, social scientists, like all the affirmative actions, are they not underlining all the identities or the diversities, and whether affirmation can be more organic so that this becomes identity agnostic. That's something that is very important to understand. Nevertheless, in this non-neurogenic social diversity case, I'll end with a story of resilience and how inclusion can be celebrated. So I have a decade-long friend whom I did postdoc with in Columbia University. And we had a nice paper in a very big journal. And we were celebrating, we went to Lower Manhattan and went to a pub, had played some TT, table tennis, etc. And then our mentor, a Russian Jew who likes wine, not vodka, and has lunch with carrots. So he asked this guy, so this guy was playing very well. And he asked this guy, so how come you play so well? So he's a French guy, we knew he's a French. That was a very good friend of mine, still he is. And his answer was, in my childhood, my school was destroyed and all the blackboards were surviving. So we played TT on the blackboards. So that's how I play so much TT. So he is actually a Bosnian refugee to France. This is the city where he spent his childhood, old Mostar Beach in Bosnia. It was destroyed like this. It has been resurrected like this now. So if you go to that part of the world, you should really visit it. It's fantastic. I'll end here so that with that celebratory note, that inclusion can actually bring great celebrations of life. Thank you so much. Thanks for that.